I knew that at some point he had to admit that he was going to use it. But I said, why not now? And he said, not, it's not ready yet. This isn't the time yet. So I think what he is preparing for is something really big on election night.
I know that this interview right now is obviously your biggest interview of the week, but a few days ago, you did sit down with this other guy. I'm sure some of my audience has heard about him before. This Donald Trump fella. I'm sure some people have heard of him. Can you just tell me a little bit, sort of like, what is the preparation as an interviewer to do that? I know you have a relationship, and he calls in and all that kind of stuff. Um, but like, just what's it like sitting down with the guy and trying to just make sense of the world with him right now?
As you said, I've known Donald Trump for about 35 years. My then husband Al, who answered the phone and fought with this sergeant, kept saying, "I'm not the assistant DA. Jeanine is." Represented Donald for years. So we spent time most weekends going to Florida with Donald. When my kids were little and his kids were little. And so I know the man. I know Donald Trump, the man. I have a sense of, who he is, and I know a side of him, not the caricature that they make him out to be. I know that he's brilliant. But to answer your question directly, how do you sit down and prepare for it? Um, I try to. First thing you do is you figure out topics. What do you want to talk to him about? Biggest issues right now are the pandemic, the rioting and the looting, the election, the debate. Joe Biden, is he capable? And the things that no one was talking about that I thought was so important were the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, the
Hmm.
Abraham Accords just signed. I mean, talk about Israel, the United Arab Emirates, Israel and Bahrain. I mean, this is big stuff. And, apparently the Saudis are about to follow. So I
Yeah.
talked to him about that, and I write my questions out. And I've never talked to anyone else at Fox on how they do it. It's almost like you're trying a case, but it's your direct case. It's not really a cross examination. But you know that you're going to have to push a little bit. So there are two questions where I pushed. The one question was, look, said something like, Mr. President, I know that you have to be invited into certain areas in order to bring in the National Guard, as you did in Milwaukee and as you did in Kenosha. But there are some places they will just not have you in. And they'd rather see rioting and looting. The word is that on election night, assuming that there's a winner, and if you win, if you are the winner, and there are the promised riots, looting, and anarchy, what will you do? He said, we'll put it down very quickly. What will you do? We're going to put it down very quickly. What will you do? He
Hmm.
said, insurrection. It's going to use the Insurrection Act. And I knew that at some point he had to admit that he was going to use it. But I said, why not now? And he said, not, it's not ready yet. This isn't the time yet. So I think what he is preparing for is something really big on election night. Where were you on election night? Do you remember 2016? Where were you?
Yeah, I was on air on the Daily Wire with Ben Shapiro and the crew over there. And my one takeaway of the night, I don't know if you know Andrew Klavan, who's one of the hosts on the Daily Wire. He said something that I thought was really brilliant that night. He
Yeah,
said, only in America could the thing that everyone said couldn't happen could
yeah,
happen. And I thought,
interesting.
well, all right, whether you love Trump or hate Trump, the fact that something like that can happen, that all the pundits could get it wrong, all the pollsters could get it wrong, all the elites could get it wrong, that's actually pretty beautiful. That goes to the strength of our democracy, actually.
And it really does go to the strength of our democracy, that it's not so predictable, it's not so set in stone, it's not as though people are orchestrating it. I remember coming out of the Hilton on election morning. It was like 3:30 or 4 in the morning, And I was just so excited. I mean, I think BuzzFeed, one of them had a picture of me standing on a chair with a Trump hat on, and I had the loudest dress I could wear. It was like orange flowers or something. And so I'm like dancing out of the hotel, and all of a sudden, somebody starts cursing at me. And and I look down and I look up. The guy's like 6'4", and he's cursing me out. And not a shy New Yorker, I went right back at him.
Yeah.
Although he was a foot taller than me, although he was in a tutu, but he was really tall. So the cop said to me, "Judge, come over here." I said, "No, make him go over there." I'm really stupid sometimes. To you, I don't know
You're a New
what's wrong.
Yorker.
Yeah. Whatever the reason is, I was stupid. And so then another guy started coming out cursing at me. She's a Trump person. So the reason I bring it up is I guarantee you that 2020, if the president is announced as the winner that night, it's going to be wild. And I truly believe he will win. I think that even people, Dave, in those towns where there's anarchy, like Portland and Seattle, and I know those are liberal states, and like Oregon and all that, but there are people now who are afraid.
Yep.
They're afraid. They survived kind of the pandemic, and they have one shot to get back their business, which is the security for their family, which is their ego, their sense of self, their sense of self-worth. Our jobs are who we are. And bang, the protesters come in and destroy it. I don't think they want the left controlling that and getting away with impunity. This is impunity, but it's not one thing, Dave. It's not like all of a sudden it was a perfect storm that George Floyd died, and
Hmm.
everybody said, "All right, let's revolt." No, you don't find bricks in the middle of a pandemic, right?
Yep.
Nobody's building anything in Manhattan, and all of a sudden, all over the country, there's no bail statutes. So everyone who's being arrested is being let out. And even the ones who are being arrested, they've now got prosecutors who have been elected with the support of the Democrat Socialists of America who are saying, we're not prosecuting them. We're not putting people in jail. We're letting people out of jail. And so now this whole layer that we haven't even noticed is on fire. And it is set for a huge turnaround. And this is the last chance we have in this country to secure law and order.
So that, all right, so that brings us to the book, because I read a bunch of it this morning, and the opening of the book, in essence, you say this is a battle of good and evil.
Yeah.
And I've sort of come around to that. Like, I don't like thinking that my ideological enemies are evil, and I think a lot of them have good intentions. But I think, in effect, at this point, this thing that we're fighting, that you're talking about, this Marxist revolution and Antifa and BLM and this whole thing, it has become evil, even if some of them do have good intentions. Do you really believe that this is sort of the last stand? That we always say this is the most important election ever,
Yeah.
but do you really feel like this is it? Like, this is the final stand?
You're right. We always say it. People always say this is the most important election in your lifetime. I really mean it this time. I mean, I would take an oath on this. I would go to church on this.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics instead of nonstop yelling, check out our politics playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist, all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.